Great. Okay, we're recording. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Clean Energy Academy. The date is Sunday, the 6th of October. Now, we're privileged to have George Wiseman with us. We would like to thank Valerie from Fringe Energy for arranging this interview. George is an author, researcher, and expert in alternative energy and health and wellness, specifically in the fields of molecular hydrogen therapy. He'll talk more about that later on. Now, I've been a longtime follower of George's work on his website, eagleresearch.com. And I've always been impressed with his innovative work over the years. But today we're especially interested in his most recent development of his hydrogen therapy device that we'll discuss later in the live call. It has huge implications in healing, if not entirely reversing, ailments that many of us are suffering from. George, welcome. It's an honor having you on, and please tell the audience a little bit about your background and who you are.
Okay, I grew up on a cattle ranch, and we didn't have any electricity or running water or indoor plumbing or anything. It was quite rural. And when I boarded out in town, we had a little country school that went to grade 10. And then when I boarded out in town to go to grade 11 and 12, I stayed at a person's house that had indoor plumbing and electricity and everything, which was quite interesting and nice. And I decided I'd never want to be without that again. So when it came time for me to start thinking of girls, I realized I wasn't a very rich man, and girls seemed to pay attention to people who had more money than I did. And so I thought, well, there's two different ways I could go. I could be an inventor or a prospector. I could probably figure out something along those lines. So I tried prospecting for a little while, and it was a lot of hard work. So I turned to the inventing, and I eventually actually got something, and that was in the fuel saver industry. And one of the trades that I've accumulated over the years is automotive technician. So I was able to make fuel savers that were quite effective. And I built a business on that called Eagle Research, Eagle-Research, if you're looking it up. And then it evolved into all different kinds of fuel savers. And because once I understood some things, I was able to do others. Mm-hmm. And I was able to, I ran across this thing called Brown's gas. Now, back in the day, I didn't know anything about the healing aspects of Brown's gas. That will be a couple of decades later. But at first, I found that I could increase the combustion efficiency of automobiles by about 25% if I added this like a catalyst to the incoming airflow, mm-hmm. and more or less keeping the regular fuel system intact and just making some adjustments and such. And then, but the main thing I was trying to do at the time was run vehicles on water, and I still haven't done that. I still have some ideas on how to do that, but I kind of got sidetracked. Anyway. Another thing that happened then with the Brown's gas was I developed a torch where you could replace acetylene in a normal acetylene torch and burn through steel and do all the kinds of things that a normal torch does very well. In fact, better than acetylene, and at 2% of the cost. So it was the downside is it's a $4,000 or $5,000 machine, where acetylene for $250 and rental a bottle, you're back in business, you know.
Wow.
So anyway,
yeah.
Then people who had the torch, one particular guy got back in touch with me. I have no idea what happened or why it happened, but he bubbled some of the gas in water, and he put that bubbled water, on a melanoma on his forehead. Wow. Just with a cotton ball, and he covered it with a piece of tape and a plastic cap, and he just kept changing out the water. And in 3 weeks' time, his melanoma was gone. This is what he told me in 1996. I did not believe him. I had no idea the healthfulness of the gas or anything, so I didn't believe him.
Yeah.
And I was wrong. And that happens. It's an occupational hazard to being an inventor. You're wrong a lot. But then once in a while you find that good thing. Anyway, what happened was, though, I had several thousand people who had bought my water fuel savers and stuff, and mm-hmm. I told people about this potential application for the gas that could be used, and people started using my previous Brown's gas machines for health purposes and started getting back to me, and I was getting an amazing amount of testimonials. Unfortunately, I'm still pretty hard-headed, so from 1996 to 2005, I never even drank the Brown's gas water myself, even though I was saying it's a potential application and people were doing it. So in 2005, I started drinking it myself. I'm pretty hard-headed, okay? And from 2005 to present, I have never gotten sick again. I've gotten a sniffle, but I've never had the flu or cold or anything like that.
Wow, wow.
Yes, and so by 2007, I was pretty convinced that it was a healthful thing to do, and I started making what I called the ER50 electrolyzers, which is tabletop Brown's gas electrolyzer or designed for health purposes, but just for the drinking of the water. Then people started asking me, how about inhaling the gas? Now, this was back in 2007, you know, and this was way before anybody was really realizing hydrogen for health or anything like that. And I knew the gas to be a combustible gas, okay? Like you could explode it or burn it or so I'm thinking having explosions in your lungs is not a good idea. Not a good idea. So I would say, no, don't breathe the gas. And then in December of 2015, a customer sent me a video of a hydrogen bar over in Korea where they were actually sitting in a row and they had their little Brown's gas machines and they were inhaling the gas with cannulas similar to like this one that I have here next to my computer that I breathe the gas with when I'm sitting at my computer. And they were inhaling the gas just like I am now. And I saw it going through the bubbler and I realized I was wrong again. I realized why I was wrong. You see, you breathe in a certain amount of air, quite a lot.
Right.
And if you keep the amount of hydrogen that you're inhaling under the explosive limit, okay, so I knew about this explosive limit. I've been working with the gas for decades, right?
Yeah.
But it didn't occur to me that it was appropriate for health purposes that a person that was the safety thing. As long as you're under the explosive limit of the gas, less than 4% in air, the gas can't explode and it's perfectly safe to inhale.
Wow, fascinating.
So, since then, people like Tyler DeBaron interviewed me back in 2007 because he was thinking of hydrogen for health at that time. And he went on and he's become one of the premier advocates for hydrogen for health. And there's now easily over 1,000 scientific studies and gathering more every day on just about every different kind of ailment. But then in 2016, early 2016, I actually videotaped myself first inhaling the Brown's gas. I was kind of busy at that time when I first learned about it in 2015 of December because my wife was on her last legs dying at that time from severe lupus, which it turns out is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about helping people get well. Yeah. Because in 2016, I started inhaling the gas, and by mid-2016, I developed the AquaCure machine, which is much more advanced. It's like the Ford F-150 to a Model T, as opposed. Yep. It's still not a Lamborghini or anything because I'm trying to keep the price down for the average consumer. So anyway, it wasn't too long after I'd said about inhaling the gas, and this was actually still with an ER50 machine that this happened. A woman who had lupus reported in 3 weeks' time her lupus symptoms were gone.
That is amazing. Wow.
And my wife had battled the lupus for 10 years. And the last 3 years of her life, it was so bad, her organs were failing and she was so weak, she couldn't even roll over in bed without assistance. So I became her 24/7 caretaker. So I pretty much lost my business and everything and what have you because I couldn't work and care for her at the same time. Yeah. So after she passed in March of 2016, I dived back into my work as soon as I could breathe again a little bit and started doing this. And then it was a severe blow on my heart again when the very thing that I'd been experimenting with since 1986, I was one of the worldwide experts in, that God had given me the clues in 1996 would have made this woman healthy, and I still have her with me today. Wow. So that is why I am very passionate at making sure that other people don't go through this severe thing that happens with the with all these ailments that are out there. Like it has to come back to hydrogen. We're 62% hydrogen by volume. Yes. And 24% oxygen, and 12% carbon, and 2% everything else. So our most important macronutrient is the hydrogen, and people just haven't had any clue about it. No,
Yeah.
of course, I didn't either, and I just have been learning since. So what I am is an expert in building electrolyzers, building and optimizing electrolyzers, Brown's gas electrolyzers in specific, or what's also known as hydroxy or HHO. So that's the story about that question.
Well, you've really encapsulated your experience, and again, we really appreciate you for what you've been doing with your developments, and yeah, and we see your heart in the work that you've done. I've been following the work since you've been doing the electrolyzer stuff on Eagle Research. I mean, for at least 15 years or so. I'm one of these younger, I guess, enthusiasts that have been following, seeing, and just trying. When I was much younger, I wanted to get involved, and it was websites like yours and the knowledge that you shared through your publications, with the brochures and stuff that you were selling at the time, that got me interested, and like especially in the electronics aspect. I find it very interesting that you came at this from a mechanical automotive trade skill set, and that's what got you going into the fuel efficiency thing. I do find it interesting that machines consuming fuel, there's a parallel with that and how human beings are almost, especially with hydrogen, consuming this, if similar, if not the same fuel for our bodies. There's this thing with this alternative or free energy with in addition to, how our bodies function more efficiently. And so I'm going to try to step us back and kind of walk forward from when you went from this transition into alternative energy. So we're going to touch on that a bit because we are a Clean Energy Academy, and we see some parallels with, interesting enough, cures for the body, treatments for the body, and alternative clean energy, abundant energy. And so I'm going to start by saying, like we already said what were some of the defining events that got you interested in alternative energy, fuel savers to begin with. Now, as far as I know that your path has taken you on this road, and for that, this is why we're talking, especially with your AquaCure technology that we're going to be talking about more. But just to briefly touch on the alternative energy side, are there any particular projects or trends that you see in alternative energy that you think looks promising? Whether it's hydrogen generators or solid state, is there anything that kind of piques your interest in that realm?
Yeah, there's a lot that piques my interest. First of all, there's ways of increasing efficiency in of systems that exist now, like my capacitive battery charger charges a battery twice as fast with half of the electricity that a normal inductive charger does.
Wow.
Just to say, there's a bunch of things that can increase efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there are several inventors over the decades that have shown that there is an effect. We're talking about Edwin Gray, Joseph Newman, and Bedini, and a few like that have shown that there's a collapsing magnetic effect that can be used to generate electricity. It's like you use a very small amount of electricity to create a vortex field in space, and then you just stop that electricity and the vortex field collapses. And you can gain more energy from that collapse than it takes to make the effect. So you can spin this up and then gather it. So there seems to be several inventors that have figured out how to do that in various ways, and I'd like to get back into that research. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of heat ones, like even Tesla back in the day figured out a heat where you could generate energy from just the heat, ambient heat in the air. Wow. I've got something similar to that I'm building in my own home right now. Mm-hmm. I finally have a home that I can do it in. And so when I'm done with that, it'll just take heat from the air. And in this case, I have a solar assist heat pump. So there's solar panels on the roof that are facing the sun. And when the sun's rays are shining on them, even in the wintertime, it's gathering the solar energy and storing it as heat. And then I can turn that heat into electricity. Wow. So there's ways using low temperature phase change.
Hmm.
So there's ways that that can be done, and that follows somewhat to Tesla's technology.
Hmm.
Tesla's like a hero inventor of mine. If a person's going to
Yeah,
say it.
absolutely. Yeah.
And then another one that's interesting, based back kind of getting into the Brown's gas technology, is something that Al Throckmorton calls the Lord's pump.
Okay.
And I'm not sure why he called it the Lord's pump, except he's a very Christian man, and he's trying to make a pump that can pump water in third world countries for people who don't have water.
Hmm.
So the idea is that it's a pistonless pump, and the way that that works is that when you have an explosion, after an explosion, there's usually a vacuum.
Okay.
And the vacuum sucks water in from one side through a check valve into
Hmm.
this cylinder that's up and down. So the water is filling the cylinder, and then as the water's coming in, you're also putting in a fuel at the
Hmm.
top, say you have a spark plug. And then when the water level gets to a certain point, you ignite the fuel, and it pushes pressure on that water that's in there,
Hmm.
which can go this way because there's a check valve. But another pipe going out this way has a check valve, and so it pushes that pressure down and pushes the water out that way. So
Wow.
you're burning the fuel to do that. And if you combine three different technologies, like Aaron Murakami's plasma ignition system,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
needs a very large spark with a tiny amount of electricity, cold fog system, so that you can actually essentially burn water. It's in this liquid form, and Brown's gas, which acts like a catalyst to do the difference. So a tiny amount of Brown's gas, a water fog, and a plasma ignition, you actually can generate up to 10 times more energy, potential energy, by
Wow.
pumping water than it takes in electricity to make all the system work, according to what Al Throckmorton is saying. So then at that point, you would have something you could make a self-running machine. You could have the water pumped up to a height that would come down and turn a generator, which would light normally,
Hmm.
do all the things electricity normally does, and then there's a pool down below that you're sucking the water back up from with the pump, using less energy to pump the thing uphill.
Wow.
And
That is
see if
amazing.
that's something, maybe something like that'll work.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a bunch of things out there, and I think that there have been, like Morey, T. Henry Morey,
Hmm.
a bunch of people who actually have done this, actually made, in that case, a 50 kilowatt machine,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
it was smashed and destroyed, and machines like that are very difficult to rebuild, because it took decades for the man to put enough of the stuff together, and he just didn't have the wherewithal to rebuild it. So there's
Yes.
been a lot of stuff. But then getting on to more of the modern science thing, thorium is a huge. If they took the nuclear industry and just went to thorium
Hmm.
instead of various uranium and plutonium and stuff, thorium is very easy to work with, and very not
Doesn't leave so much of the waste. Is that?
right.
Yeah.
And it's still got shoot hundreds of years that it can do, and you could put a thorium powered reactor in a car, and it would never require fuel again, and as long as it ran, and
Wow.
they do make like magnetic bearings and things, so vehicles could get 1,000,000 miles to a use and never even have to use fossil fuels. And and when you're parked at home, your thorium reactor could power the house,
Hmm.
because generally speaking, the power plants for vehicles are bigger than what is necessary for a house. So you could even power 2 or 3 homes just from one automobile. It's stuff like that. The technology exists to do amazing things, but it's just not used because it's not profitable. It's
Yeah.
like when,
Yeah.
yeah. So
It's kind of left to us DIY developers to actually come up with a solution and share it among other people
and
who are
that's
willing.
where it will come from. And
Yeah.
quite frankly, that's what'll happen, and it'll have to be people who don't have a greedy the greedy thing, because that's what they use to suppress all these ones. Because I think it's been done several times. I'm
Yes.
not
Yeah.
been smart enough to do it yet, but I've been gathering information and
Yeah.
standing on the shoulders of giants, and
Yeah. Absolutely.
and so
Wow.
the people that share are the people that help others grow, and then what'll happen is a whole bunch of people will be able to do it, and then it won't be able to be stopped. It'll become just commonplace. Yeah.
That's just brilliant. So so we're going to go into talking about now. I know. So before you made that transition into the health applications for Brown's gas, do you think there is still a market for Brown's gas electrolysis for fuel saving, or do you think there are better alternatives out there that one should consider for creating more efficient running cars?
Both.
Okay.
If we're going to continue with the fossil fuel, you
Mhm.
should definitely be using both the Brown's gas and water injection because first of all, fossil fuel requires a moisture to burn.
Okay.
Most mechanics and a lot of drivers know that when the dew starts to fall out of the air in the evening, their vehicle suddenly runs smoother. It's because it's getting a little more water moisture in the air. So every vehicle should have at least a simple water injection system. And then when you add the Brown's gas, then you're getting into that thing where we were just talking about with the Lord's pump, where you have some water droplets and you have the
Oh, yes.
and stuff. And all those things together make the fuel combustion much more efficient. So all of a sudden you're cutting your fuel consumption in half.
Okay.
So you can immediately stop the emissions that are going off for global warming and whatever, and pollution and what have you, by half. So if you're going to continue to use fossil fuel, which in any case there would be an interim period, then absolutely that would have to happen. And then if a person goes off into hydrogen fuels or the which there are engines like the Bork engine and stuff that can run on hydrogen fuel quite nicely. If you evolve into that, well, then you don't need the electrolysis so much.
Right.
But there are but also if you're going to be with the fossil fuels, you should burn it efficiently. And one of the ways to do that is to turn the fuel completely into a vapor before it burns, because only vapor fuel burns, hydrocarbon fuels. So the liquid fuel, it's like a candle. Okay, you put the candle, it's a solid paraffin, and when the flame is burning, it makes a little pool of liquid, but that little pool of liquid does not burn. It does not explode. It does not anything. It just runs up the wick with and when the heat turns that liquid to a vapor, then the vapor burns. So that it's the same with any other hydrocarbon fuel. It has to be mixed it has to be vapor and mixed with oxygen before it can burn. So if you do that before it goes into the engine, then the engine can burn very efficiently, and you can get up to 10 times the fuel economy. 10 times.
That's impressive.
So these are the kinds of things that should be done and aren't done, and the technology isn't new. I found fuel savers that worked on this principle of vaporizing the fuel. In fact, one of them was made by Benz of Mercedes-Benz back in the 1800s.
Wow.
And it was never put on the vehicles because it's more profitable to burn the fuel. Make the vehicles burn as much fuel as possible, which comes from one of my pet peeves, which is called a catalytic converter. Because I have this, I just have this idea. I have this idea that it's better to burn the fuel in the engine rather than in the exhaust system. I just think that it'll propel the car better.
That seems to make sense. Well, that's amazing. So now we're going to get into more of the health aspects. You already answered one of the questions about when you first realized there's a connection with HHO or Brown's gas and hydrogen health treatments. Based on the feedback from your customers when you're developing the fuel savers. So I'm just going to go ahead and get into the next question. And by the way, you look great. Your complexion, everything. You look great. As I looked at some of the earlier footage, a couple of years back, and you just look fantastic.
Thank you.
Look like you've gained you've lost a couple of years, and you're looking great. So what are the benefits of hydrogen treatment, and what has it done for you?
Okay, good question. I actually have a list here because I forget. I'll just say in a preliminary thing. When I started inhaling the gas, I did so just to prove that it was safe. I didn't do it because I thought I was sick. I didn't know all the things. It was just normal. So as I'm listing off this litany here, just remember that I didn't really think I was sick. I thought I was healthy, and this is just normal aging and that sort of thing. So we'll go to here. Start up this program, open this document. There you go. And go to this spot. So here we go. My personal to-date rejuvenation. Okay, so as of this time, I'm nearly 61 years old. I now look like I did when I was 45, because you can look at previous pictures and you can see. In fact, if you look at my YouTube channel, you'll see what I looked like when I was 45. You can, because the main screen where I'm kind of looking upward like that is me at 45.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also I have to say, in addition to this list, the Brown's gas really saved my life in one way, in two ways. First of all, it gave me a reason, something to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I didn't feel like doing anything. I pretty much, when my wife died, I pretty much lost the will to even breathe. It was bad. It was the worst thing I'd ever felt in my entire life, and I've had bones crushed and all kinds of things. I grew up on a cattle ranch. So but that was the worst. And grief, yeah, it can kill. I can definitely see that. You just stop wanting to live. Mm-hmm. And it's not like you wanted to kill yourself. You just have no interest in living. Mm-hmm. So it gave me an interest in living. But the other thing it did was it gave me my libido back. And I had not realized how little or whatever. And it got really embarrassing there for a while because I was interested in women.
It was more invigorated. It's part, your body is part of that process, that healing process, just invigorated all aspects of you. Exactly.
And I'm telling you, it's impossible to feel that you don't want to live anymore mm-hmm. if you are wanting sex all the time. It's just okay. So back to what's going on here. All right. So the first thing that disappeared was the psoriasis on my elbows, knees, and feet. Mm-hmm. I had thick peeling skin, and I grew up on a cattle ranch, so I had lots of calluses and stuff like that. So I just thought that was normal. I thought that was calluses, what have you. I didn't realize it wasn't until that skin started to peel off like a snake loses skin, and underneath was smooth, baby smooth skin, and it was disconcerting, of course. But having the skin peel off like that, but the result was absolutely amazing, and that's what convinced me to continue inhalation. And then the arthritis in my hands, I'd had pain in my knuckles, and I got full functionality and pain-free hands again. Mm-hmm. So that was another good thing. My tinnitus, it was getting hard to hear people speak with the loud ringing in my ears. And now I only get tinnitus a little bit when I get under severe stress. So it is a stress-related thing, at least for me.
Fascinating.
And I can know I'm under stress when I hear a little bit of whispering, hissing in the back of my ears there. So I pay attention to the stress thing. Neuropathies. Mm-hmm. I have been losing the feeling in my left palm and in the fronts of both my shins. The doctors didn't know why the fronts of the shins, but they said that the palm thing had to do with a nerve in my elbow, and she touched it and it hurt, and that was understandable. But as I was doing it, I got full feeling back in the palm of my hand, and as that happened, then I realized suddenly that I had full feeling back in the fronts of my shins. Now again, all of this I just thought was normal aging. I thought I was healthy, right? Yeah. So my hair was going gray and bald on top, and you can't see because how much hair is here because the background in the Zoom is taking it out, so it looks like I am. But my hair is growing back to where it was before, in my previous pictures, and I'm gray again now instead of pure white. Mm-hmm. And I had a complete white mustache, and as you can see, I'm getting this.
The colors returned.
Coming back, yep, it's great. And the next thing that was interesting was I had moved from the west to the east, and when I moved to the east, it was hard to get a doctor, so it took a little bit of time. And when I finally did get a doctor, they did a full physical on me, and for the records and what have you. And in the process, I said I have a heart murmur, and because I've had one since I was a child. And he said, "No, you don't."
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was a surprise for me. And which brings me quickly to my father. I gave him one of these machines, and I didn't know that he was going in for heart surgery, and his prognosis was poor because he wasn't telling anybody about that. I just gave it to him because I wanted him to be around for a lot longer, and so he started religiously inhaling the gas and drinking the water. And he had his heart surgery, and when he came out, he healed so fast the doctors, it was back, they couldn't understand it because they thought he may not even heal at all, but he just healed it. So it really helps on those sort of things. Okay, the next thing that happened was I noticed that all my warts were gone. Like I had hand warts again since I was a kid, and I have plantar's wart on my foot, and it would grow, and I'd have to clip it off because it was like a stone in my shoe if I didn't. And I suddenly realized I hadn't had to do that for a while. And I looked at my hands, and my warts were gone. So my immune system got strong enough to get rid of a virus, sports or virus, that I'd had since childhood. So and that brought me parts of the understanding that the body needs the hydrogen. And if you're not getting the hydrogen, the body is able to maintain life by shutting down things. Like if you're getting hypothermia, the body will shut off heat or blood circulation to your extremities to preserve core temperature.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not getting enough hydrogen, then what happens is the body starts to shut down what it considers to be extraneous systems that are not immediately life-threatening. So the first thing to go is your regeneration system, which is stem cells and that sort of thing, and then your immune systems, and there's a lot of different immune systems, but they start to go, and then people get sick, and then your organs start to shut down. And at that point, it's pretty much going to be game over. But as you have the hydrogen, then your organs start to recover, like my heart murmur regained, and your immune systems come back online, which again, I got rid of my warts. And then the next thing I noticed was that all my scars were gone. And I had quite a few scars on my body.
And are these are old scars?
Old scars from childhood, okay? And I hadn't done anything particular to them. I hadn't put any oil on them or any soft or anything like that. I was just inhaling the gas and drinking the water. So then but one of the places where a scar was right on my forehead. And so it was easy to see that it was gone. And when I saw that one was gone, well, then I checked the rest of my body, and those other scars were gone as well. So, and I had some really quite large and ugly scars. They were completely gone to the point where I can show people, for example, my knees, and say there was a 3-inch, half-inch wide scar on one of these knees. Tell me which one it was. Nobody can tell me. They can't show me where it is or anything. It's completely gone. And customers have reported that as well. Wow. So those are the things that happen when you get enough hydrogen. If you're not getting enough, your body shuts down as it has to preserve life. And when you're getting your hydrogen, then it turns itself back on, including the stem cells, because that's what it takes to regenerate skin. In order to turn those patches into actual skin cells, because your skin is full of all different kinds of things. You got your nerve cells and all kinds of things that are in there, and all that regenerates. And it all has to come from the stem cells. So you got your own stem cell therapy, which people are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for, right in your own body. You just got to get your hydrogen back in there. So the next thing that happened was my muscles hardened. I was actually, that happened fairly quickly. I noticed that suddenly I had strength and hardness that I didn't otherwise have before, but because I don't exercise and I spend a lot of time here in front of the computer and things like that. And one example of something that happened, 2 examples. The first one was I was pounding a fence post with an improvised metal post pounder, and I sprained my shoulder. And normally I knew that would take about 3 weeks to heal. It was bad enough I couldn't even lift my arm. 3 days. 3 days.
Wow.
It was completely pain-free.
It's like Wolverine.
Yes. And another next thing, I'm doing a total gut renovation of this particular house, and in one particular place we had to take out part of the foundation. In order to do that, there was a lot of concrete that needed jackhammering, and I jackhammered when I was working in the mines when I was younger, so I knew how to run a jackhammer. But these 20 and 30-year-olds didn't want to get shook around by a jackhammer, and they were scared of it, so I just grabbed it and jackhammered for 6 hours. And like I say, I was 58 years old at the time, and I thought I was going to have to pay for that. I thought I worked hard all day, and nothing.
That's amazing.
Nothing at all. Jackhammered all day. Just jumped on a jackhammer. Nearly 60 years old. No problem. Yeah.
So it's fascinating. So when you inhale this gas into the body, it's like it does a rework of your body from the inside out all the way to the surface of your skin, so that even your skin regenerates.
That's correct. And your body does that itself. All you're doing is giving the body the nutrition and energy it needs. And I say that in this way because this is the next generation of hydrogen for health. One of the things that is out there, people are realizing that hydrogen is good, but we are already into the next phase, which is the bronze gas or hydroxy or HHO, whichever you want to call it. It's all the same gas. But it has a component called electrically expanded water. It's not just the hydrogen. It's a component, 3 components in this gaseous mixture. You've got your hydrogen, your oxygen, and your electrically expanded water. The electrically expanded water is a plasma form of water. It's water that is not split into hydrogen and oxygen. It's still water, but it's soaked up enough energy, like a sponge soaks up water, until it became a gaseous form of water
Mm-hmm.
that is the fourth state of matter. This
Wow.
isn't George Pollock's thing. That's a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
But this, so you in states of matter, you have your solid, which is ice. You have your liquid, which is what we call water. You have your vapor, which is called steam or water vapor. And then you have your plasma, which is the electrically expanded water. So you have this electron-rich form of water that you're inhaling or putting in the water to drink, and that goes into your blood. And that charges your blood with energy. And that energy is what you need to help rebuild your body. People who are ill or have been chronically dehydrated, as in lacking of hydrogen, have either compromised energy generation systems and or have depleted their energy reserves.
Yes.
So now the hydrogen is a food, which is like a building block of life, but it can't do anything without energy.
Yes.
So the Brown's gas gives not only the hydrogen, but the energy at the same time to heal. So that's why it's very important on this. The hydroxy is the way to go if you want your maximum therapeutic benefit, in my opinion.
That is amazing. And so what is, you have already partially answered this. What is the difference between the AquaCure product line that you're currently developing and with your system and the other hydrogen generators, treatment generators on the market?
Yes. So you're right. I partially answered it in that it does not pure hydrogen. Pure hydrogen is good. And if people have a pure hydrogen machine, by all means use it. You're getting your money's worth. But if you want the maximum therapeutic value, then you also add the electrically expanded water. You get a generator or an electrolyzer, which that generates the hydroxy. All right. Now, another difference with my machines over most of them out there, including ones that you can buy for $10,000, and unfortunately, there's ones that are even scams that are selling for $10,000. It's unfortunate.
Wow.
It's what happens. You get a new technology, and it looks like it's going to make money. People jump in just
in that window of time. Yeah.
So in any case, one of the main differences of my technology is that I design for safety. Safety first. Okay. I do not want to have a Hindenburg or Challenger, because both of those were hydrogen explosions. Okay, yes. The Hindenburg wasn't an explosion, it was a burn, but nevertheless, it got a lot of publicity, and it pretty much stopped the airship industry in its tracks. Germany lost everything then. And then the next thing was the Challenger. It pretty much stopped the United States space industry. I mean, they're sending up astronauts with from other countries, using the U.S. astronauts are using other countries to get back to the space station and stuff because they stopped their own space program. Now they're gradually getting it started again and stuff, but for a while there, it was something because the Challenger, it was a hydrogen oxygen explosion that blew that up. And so I don't want to have ever anyone hurt with this technology. If it's in my power to do so, I want it to heal only. And therefore, I design the world's safest machines. Not only the safest, but the most therapeutic. Not only because of the most therapeutic gas, but because it supports all the different protocols the best of anything that's out there.
Yeah.
So currently there's 4 protocols. You can drink the water that's in hand. You can inhale the gas. Yeah. You can use the water on your skin, like the guy did with the
topically.
Topically. By the way, that's been and that's with rashes and age spots and all kinds of things on the skin.
Wow.
And then you can use the gas on your skin, which is the people that are like bag and arm. And I have videos online where it's showing like carpal tunnel syndrome, where they have inflammation of the tendon sheath.
Yes.
The hydrogen goes right through the skin and takes care of that inflammation. In 10 minutes, it's gone.
That is amazing.
Carpal tunnel syndrome. And it doesn't come back unless the people continue doing whatever it was that caused it in the first place. Then eventually it comes back. It doesn't immediately come back. But you're completely healed the carpal tunnel syndrome in 10 minutes. It's completely mitigated. So that gives ideas of the various things that can be done with the gas. Now, I will say that when you inhale and when you drink, your body decides what it's going to do with the gas.
Yeah.
If you want to treat a particular place on your body, like a knee or an elbow or whatever, then you apply it topically because then you are deciding where the gas goes. So I just,
Wow. Well, I mean, that's absolutely amazing. Now, we looked at the AC50, which is the current AquaCure model, and I think it's a great design. It's a simple design. And we like the simplicity of design. Valerie, first, she showed us the current model that you're working with, and you know, because there was some time from when I last saw you working on the it might have been when the ER50s was the last time I was following the thing that you're doing with the hydroxy kit. But what I noticed that you put some videos up fairly recently with the AC50, and one of them was this ability to add the hydroxy torch kit to the system, and I thought that was pretty impressive. How can one, like if someone wanted to, let's say, get the AC50, how would they go about getting the torch kit that they can attach later?
It's yeah, that's a good question. I have it listed in the list of accessories in the sales page of the AC50. So when you're going down the sales page, there's nearly 30 different additional things you can do, like extra gloves or goggles or hoses or jars or whatever. Anyway,
Okay.
so the torch kit is one of those things, and the sales page isn't set up to actually click on it and order it that way. You have to actually go to the what's called the general purchase page and put a different item in the cart. So you put the AquaCure AC50 in the cart first, and then you calculate how many of the accessories you want. Make a list of those. And then as you're doing that, you calculate how much it is, and then you go over to the general purchase page and put that in your shopping cart. And then you put as many units in there as necessary. So that's how you buy a torch kit to go with the machine.
Okay, well, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, we've looked at, when I was doing research for the show, I was looking at what else is on the market. Some of the footage you shared where in Asia, they seem to be, as far as adopting it as one of a way of treatment, at least for like the health spas and wellness and in clinics, they're kind of further along in hydrogen treatment. But I don't think they have what your system has as far as hydroxy. Now, you don't have to go into details, but is the difference between normal electrolysis, which some of these machines are probably doing, or most of them, and your system, because of the amount of time you spent with this level of research, is it the circuitry that is breaking the water, the way it's breaking the water? Is it down to the electric circuitry that's making the difference?
That's a really good question. There's a huge number of factors that go into electrolysis design and what you're going to do with it. The basic concept comes down to whether there's a membrane or not.
Okay.
If you have a membrane that's separating the electrodes, in this case we're going to call it the cathode, which is the negative, and the anode, which is positive. You have a membrane that's separating those two, then you're not going to get Brown's gas. You're going to get a hydrogen off your cathode and oxygen off the anode, and that's the traditional electrolysis, Faraday electrolysis, if you will, that has been done for a couple hundred years, and that is the normal. Okay. And even when they're using what's called SPE technology, solid polymer electrolyte, it essentially is a membrane. So they're getting the oxygen off one side and the hydrogen off the other, and that you can't make Brown's gas that way. It doesn't make the electrically expanded water. The electrically expanded water is only made in electrolyzers that don't have a membrane. So now we have two electrodes, your cathode and your anode, which is negative and positive, and the oxygen is being generated off the anode, and the hydrogen is being generated off the cathode. And right in the middle, where my nose is, right in the middle of the cell, there will be a third gas being generated. Now, normally that's where the membrane would be, but when the membrane is there, it interferes with this effect, and this effect is when the anions and cations are going back and forth across between the plates to balance the electrolysis. Some of those electrons are attaching onto the water, and the water is expanding and becoming the plasma form of water, which is electrically expanded water. And so it only happens when you have no membrane.
Fascinating.
Now, Now, the most efficient type of way to do it has to do with plate spacing and electrolyte density and temperatures and waveforms and pulsing,
Yeah,
all kinds of things that a person gets into. But the basic idea is that you have to have no membrane between the electrodes.
okay. Wow, that's amazing. So you believe that the hydroxy treatment is the future for health and wellness?
I do.
Just in general? Yeah.
I absolutely do. It'll be implemented by everyone everywhere. And it's kind of like the Ford Model T days when Henry Ford said, "I want to have a car in every driveway." Well, people need to really have one of these in every home, and it will revolutionize health as we know it. Suddenly, we may have a actual health care system instead of a sick care system.
Yeah.
Like right now, it's more profitable to keep people sick because you're selling drugs and all that kind of stuff, and sick people keep coming back for more drugs. So if you mitigate the symptoms instead of curing the disease, then you have essentially a captive audience that will continue buying your product, which is the drugs and stuff. So this way, people just won't get sick, and then the doctors will be there for healing broken bones and maybe doing cosmetic surgery and things like that. The healthcare, the billions and billions that are spent on healthcare right now will be mitigated just by having one of these machines in every home.
Wow. Well, I mean, I look forward to that day. I think this technology is amazing, and we look forward to being able to demonstrate a unit when we're able to do so. But I just think it's an amazing work that you've put into it. I mean, it looks like decades worth of research when you show off the system in your videos, in front of your customers and to see you at the conference, and it's just I'm really pleased to be doing this interview with you, and I think that the people who are on the live call and those who are going to watch this after the call, it's just we're amazed with what the technology can do and what it can bring. So, how can customers get in touch with you, George?
They go to eagle-research.com. So eagle like the bird, and then a dash mark, and then research.com. And there's a contact page so that they can click on it and send me an email from there. So that's how they get in touch. And of course, then they can go to the shop, to the store and buy the machines and what have you as well.
Well, that's brilliant. So, I mean, that pretty much does as far as my questions. Now, I think there are some comments here from some of our members. So let's see what we have. You ready to answer a few more questions?
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Excellent. Okay. Here's a question. How to determine how long to breathe the HHO per day?
That is a very good question. Okay. So one of the things that happens at first, so there's a time when you have to get into it. You have to think of hydrogen as a food, because you normally get it from your food. You can't just breathe in hydrogen from the air because it's got mostly oxygen and nitrogen, and there's a very teeny amount of hydrogen. In fact, if you have a hydrogen balloon, you see that whoof, up in the air it goes. Back to God. So in any case, the atmosphere doesn't have hydrogen. So where do you get your hydrogen from? Well, most people didn't know, and even doctors didn't know for hundreds or thousands of years. It's only recently that anybody paid attention to this, just like when Isaac Newton got bonked on the head with an apple, he said, "Oh, well, what about gravity?" Anyway, so this hydrogen thing is important, and you get it from your food. So your food has hydrogen in it, hydrocarbons essentially, and when you eat, your body it breaks it down, starting with the enzymes in your mouth and the mastication, and then goes through the acids in your stomach and the lower intestines. But the actual hydrogen doesn't get released from the food until your colon. Okay, your food is almost coming out of you, and and that's where the bacteria live that do the final breaking off. It takes a lot of energy to break the hydrogen off of anything, because hydrogen is tightly bound to molecules on the planet, or else poof, away it would go. Right. All right. So now the key thing is that these particular bacteria, and you can imagine there's millions and millions of different kinds of bacteria, but there's bacteria that are best at breaking the hydrogen off of food.
Okay. And
those bacteria happen to be very sensitive to antibiotics. And what do we do whenever anybody is sick or anything like that? We feed them antibiotics. So you get a short-term gain in if antibiotics do work and help people get over a minor crisis, but it killed those bacteria. So the long term, your immune system has now suffered because you don't have the hydrogen to support the immune system, because those bacteria need to be rebuilt. And I'm hoping that people will get into probiotics that will regenerate that. And there is research that's going on with that. Nevertheless, hydrogen is important. And it comes back to, it's a food. Hydrogen is actually a building block of life. So imagine that you are on a starvation diet and you haven't eaten anything for a month. If you don't have a 7-course meal, you have a little soup, else you're going to be sick. And the same thing happens with the hydrogen. When you first start inhaling it, you want to inhale it slowly, or all kinds of weirdnesses can happen because your body suddenly gets this massive treasure trove of food that it's needed and starts doing all kinds of things with it, and it makes you feel weird. So, and the weirdnesses can be headaches or rashes, or you can't sleep, or you sleep too much, or okay. I say weirdness because every body is different, and I have no idea how it's going to manifest in any particular body, but I do know you need to start slow. Okay, now you've built up. I say let's start about 5 minutes 3 times a day, because it, like food, it's best if you have some and then let your body absorb, and then have some and let your body absorb. Okay, so so about 5 minutes 3 times a day, increase a minute a day. So the second day, 6 minutes 3 times a day, third day, 7 minutes, like that. So now when you're up to 20 minutes 3 times a day, then you can inhale all you want. Like I've inhaled as much as 8 hours a day. And a lot of people sleep all night with it. They just go to sleep with the cannulas on and breathe it all night. And that's fine. There's no problem with that whatsoever. There's no toxic limit of the gas, because if you inhale more than your body needs when your blood is saturated, you just exhale the excess. The body just gets rid of it, just like excess carbon dioxide. So to answer the question, generally a therapeutic value would be a minimum of an hour a day, preferably in 3 20-minute sections. But some people, they just don't have 20 minutes 3 times a day that they can sit down and do it. So you do what you can.
Okay.
Just like you're eating.
Great, great. And there's some comments here. There's someone saying, wow, what an incredible story. Another, I'm not sure if that's a question or a comment. Any positive glaucoma cases should be easy to measure eye pressure drop. Any comments on that?
I haven't, I've run across some things, but I'm not sure exactly. I don't have an actual study that can say that. And I only have recently started including goggles in my kit. So the goggles are for when you're mixing the lye, supposedly. You put your goggles on for safety. But then what would you do with the goggles? So what I did is I drilled a small hole in the top so that you put the gas in there, and the gas can be around the eyes. But the key thing was I didn't want too high of oxygen or hydrogen concentration around the eyes, because I didn't want an explosive mixture around the eyes. Yeah. So the goggles are vented, so the gas comes in and goes out, and it's just going past, and there's not enough that it would be explosive. So I'm assuming that we'll see some things with cataracts and glaucoma and the various things with eyes.
I think that's a great idea, just for things like eye treatment, to have like that the hose that would normally go would actually go through the goggles to feed the gas. Yeah, that's pretty clever. What else we have here? I think Dustin is asking, please discuss the release of liability process to integrate into a medical clinic. Also, it's UL or ROHS listed. I'm not sure if that's what you feel about that.
I understand. It is CE safety certified and is built to URL and CSA, UL and CSA standards. So it's actually built to Australian safety standards as well. Wow. So it's completely it's not safety certified around the world, but it's built to the safety standards. It's only CE safety certified. Like I say, I'm building the safest machine, but these other certifications take a lot of time and money to do, and then it's an ongoing cost to maintain them.
Understand.
Which I just haven't bothered taking the time to do. But it cost me about $50,000 to learn those standards and to implement them, and I do implement them in the machine. So the machine is built to the standards. Now, as far as liability, you're going to have to check with liability insurance on that. I would say, obviously, there would be what is it, the form that they fill out, people fill out and say, okay, I won't hold liable.
Yeah.
There's a name for it, but it's just escaping me for the moment.
Yeah.
In any case, that you could do if necessary.
Yeah.
Other than that, and insurance, I don't have anything specific in mind.
Yeah. I think because we're kind of familiar, not necessarily with medical, or it's not this like machinery or equipment, but the way a lot of companies work when it comes to making things. Like if I wanted to order something on like Alibaba or some other website, and this machine is built in one country, they build it to a certain standard. But then the buyer, whether it be another company, a business-to-business transaction, or let's say someone who's running a clinic or a practitioner, they would buy the equipment, and then when they get the equipment, they would go through the footwork of making sure that it's within whatever certification or necessary thing they need to run their practice in that country. So yeah, it's something a lot of people may not be aware of, but I mean, the fact that you built your machine to actually be able to go through that process for anyone who buys that stuff I think is the most important.
Yeah, actually, come to think of it, there is a company in England right now that is starting that exact process, taking these machines through being medically certified. So not only just safety certified, but certified to be a medical device. And the other thing I forgot to mention is that these machines have a lifetime warranty. If they break down due to manufacturer error for the life of the person who bought it, I will fix, repair, replace, whatever necessary. I build the machines to last. And the second thing that I do, because I know that this will take time, it's a food. So I know that there may be some things that are immediately mitigated, like pain from arthritis or the psoriasis thing or carpal tunnel or something. But there's some things that just take time. Like I don't wear glasses anymore. Talking about the glaucoma thing, I didn't have glaucoma, but I wore glasses since I was 9 years old. And I still have some for close-up reading or stuff like that I have, but for the most part, 99.9% of the time, I don't wear glasses anymore, and I wore them all of my life.
Wow.
And I found I just didn't need them. My eyes had gotten better just from the inhalation. I didn't need it. So it comes back to my satisfaction guarantee. I have a 1 year, 100% satisfaction guarantee. Anybody that uses the machine, even up to a year, and decides it isn't going to be what they need or want or whatever, they can return it and get 100% of their money back.
Well, that is an amazing warranty and guarantee, and thank you for sharing that. And also, you ship all over the world?
Yes, all over the world.
Wow, that is, and I think Clive just asked, and you just answered that you ship to England, or how easy is it to ship to England? You haven't had any problems?
No,
yeah,
easy.
That's very smooth.
The hardest one has recently been India. There's been no problem with any other. But they've implemented a thing where they call it your Know Your Customer program.
Oh, wow.
So you actually have to get a utility bill that proves the customer lives at wherever it is you're shipping to, and a copy of their identification, government issued identification or password or something.
Wow.
Before include copies of that with the shipment, else the Indian government won't allow it in.
Oh, wow. So the person on the other end might not ever receive it because they didn't provide the necessary documentation. That's tough. Wow.
Yeah, that's weird. And it's recent. I've been shipping things around the world since the 80s, and I've never had any problem.
Wow, amazing. So that's great. George, thank you so much for being on with us. It really is an honor. It's a pleasure to have you on, to finally speak to you. And I'm sure we'll have you on in the future as well if you're up for it.
I am, and thank you. It was a pleasure, my pleasure.
Now, hold on. I think now John had a question, and John asks.
Yeah, and Justin has another question also that he messed up on top. On your site, there is a statement stating AC50 is not a device for human consumption. What certification will it take to make it permissible for human consumption? And also, are you pursuing any medically approved certifications? And we already heard England, so those are the questions.
Okay, so the thing on my site about not for human consumption is strictly to cover my ass and to prevent the powers that be from shutting down my website.
Yeah.
Period. It's just that. It's something like this medical disclaimer that you have to make that see your doctor. This is not intended for medical advice. I'm not giving medical advice and all this kind of things. That's just part of the what you have to say, or the powers that be won't allow it.
And we'll put a disclaimer on the front of this video live call too.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Okay. Also, John asks, if you have an ER50, is it safe to use for this? I guess
yes.
Presumably, yeah, for the
yes.
treatment that you mentioned.
Yes, it is. It doesn't have all of the safety certifications or the safety built-in safety features that the AquaCure does. It was what I had to start with.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
My actually my wife wouldn't allow the ER50 in the house because it looked like a science experiment and she didn't want it in with her nice things. So it's one of the things that she told me was, if you're ever going to sell this to the general public, you're going to have to put it in a case. So wow. I did finally put it in a case, and I added all these other features because we're talking about children, and we're talking yes. about invalids, and we're talking about people who are ignorant of electrolysis. Some of the stories I have, because people, in all honesty, they just don't know things, and so the machine has to not only take care of itself, it has to take care of the person.
Good point.
So the ER50 was made essentially from a kit. So the person who put it together knew what it was all about. Every nut and bolt and anything inside it was all put together. So it's fairly safe because the people know what's going on. But when people are just buying a machine and you're just adding water and you have this potentially explosive gas, it has to be able to take care of itself.
Wow, that's great. Now, I know John asked another question. I think you might have already answered it. It's below the explosion concentrations, right? Yeah, you made the gas so that it comes out with so much mixture of oxygen so that it doesn't.
Yes, and there is an additional point there in that the AquaCure does something that very few electrolyzers in the world do, and that is control the volume of gas coming out of the machine. So, and that's important, having to do with the explosive limit, and just reminded me, good question, thank you. And what happens is different sized people inhale different amounts of air. They have different sized lungs.
Yeah.
Straightforward. So when a very large person is inhaling air, you can have a larger volume of hydrogen going in and still be under that 4% limit. But if you put that same volume in lungs of a person with a lot smaller lungs, you'd suddenly be over the 4% limit.
Wow.
And so the children or small women or infants especially, you would be giving them a potentially explosive mixture.
Wow.
Now the mixture is perfectly safe as long as it doesn't explode. It's just this annoying explosive tendency that causes it. And the person doesn't ever want to exceed that explosive limit. You could probably get away with it for all of your life. Who knows? But there have been 5 instances that I know of where there have been explosions. And nobody hurt, but it does happen. And static electricity is enough to do it. So you get a potential difference, and touch the hose which has the gas, and it's capacitive reactions. Even though the spark itself didn't touch the gas, the capacitive reactance ignites the gas, and you can. Like you can touch a hose or a jar or whatever on it.
Wow, fascinating.
So in my manual, I cover all of that.
Now, does this also apply to the ER50, or would the person who has that unit would have to be a bit more savvy with that? Yeah,
the ER50 doesn't have a variable gas adjustment. Okay. So they have to adjust it either by adjusting capacitance, which I know how to do that in the ER50 notes and what have you, or they adjust it by adjust the gas volume by adjusting the amount of electrolyte in the machine.
Okay.
So it produces a certain amount of gas.
Okay, and we got one more question. I think we'll wrap it up. Ed asks, is HHO, this gas, is it good for autoimmune diseases? Or have you heard of anyone, like any of your customers, mention anything about that?
Absolutely yes. No
Wow.
question whatsoever. One of the very first and primary things that should be being used for is all of the autoimmune diseases.
Wow.
Again, going back to, remember what I was saying, where you got your regeneration, your immune system, your organs. When you start getting the gas, the thing that comes back in this case is your autoimmune, your immune systems come back in gear, and they don't start, and they stop tearing your own body apart. Start to act like they're supposed to. And so the autoimmune, all the inflammation and autoimmune problems go away. They just disappear, and your body starts to do things like fight cancer, which is what it's supposed to be doing. See, right now, most cancer exists because the three main ways that the body gets rid of cancer are mitigated or disappear when you haven't got enough hydrogen. As soon as you start getting enough hydrogen, your body can recognize the cancer and either cause the cells to self-kill themselves, or it recognizes it, and then there's various ways that the body can actually kill the cells. So it all comes down to the immune systems as far as that's concerned.
Yeah.
And the third thing, of course, is that the cancer usually doesn't form in the first place when there's enough hydrogen, because the cells all are healthy. If you know what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, that's absolutely amazing. Great question, Ed. Great. So we had some excellent turnout on feedback today, George. A lot of people were excited to have you on, and again, it's an honor to have you on, Ed and George, and we'll love to talk again. And thank you so much. Thank you for being on.
Have a great evening.
Okay, and so that wraps up this Clean Energy Academy live call, and we'll have another one in about 2 weeks' time. And I'm going to close the call now.